My son told me I was too old, too frail, and too heavy a burden. So, without my permission, he placed me in a nursing home and carried on with his life as if I'd already vanished. But I wasn't lost. I wasn't done. And while he thought I'd quietly slip away, I was crafting a plan of my own. This is what he feels every time he steps out of his front door. This is how I made him regret underestimating his father. I raised my son, Ethan Mitchell, with grit, sacrifice, and a heart that never quit. After my wife passed, Ethan was my world. I worked double shifts at the factory until my back gave out. I went without new boots to pay his school fees. I sold my father's watch to get him a suit for his college graduation. I never asked for gratitude. I believed love would return when I needed it most. One Thursday morning, I collapsed in the garage. I brushed it off, maybe dehydration, or I'd been tinkering with the car too long without eating. That evening, Ethan rushed over with his wife, Lauren, both looking concerned. "Dad, we just want what's best for you," Ethan said, while Lauren nodded like she'd practiced the gesture. They offered to handle my finances, brought me a thermos of stew, asked about old bank statements, and kept saying how tough it must be to keep up a house at my age. I didn't know they were secretly meeting with a lawyer, telling neighbors I was losing my mind, or that Lauren was already replacing the locks on my doors. A week later, they invited me for a drive, saying it'd be just us three. "You need a break, Dad," Ethan said with a warm smile. "We've got you." I didn't pack a suitcase, didn't grab my phone charger, didn't even wear my good jacket. They dropped me at a place with gray walls and plastic plants in the lobby of a nursing home. "Days later," Ethan said, "just settle in. The staff will take care of you." He clapped my shoulder like he meant it. Lauren gave me a quick hug, her perfume sharp against my senses. Then they left, and they didn't come back. My room had no family pictures, no tools, no radio, just a closet and a bed I didn't pick. I asked the orderly for my phone to call Ethan. He said I'd need to wait for visiting hours. He was just here, I said. He looked puzzled, then showed me a form with my name, Ethan's signature, doctor's approval, admission terms, and oversight conditions. He'd locked this in. I sat on the edge of that stiff bed, hands clasped like I was at a union meeting, staring at the tiles, trying not to tremble, but I did. The next day, I demanded to see the director. I wasn't gentle. I wasn't fading. I told her this was a mistake. She looked at me like I was a shadow pleading to exist. "Your son said you're a danger to yourself. Said you were seeing things. This is a long-term placement." I wanted to shout, but I held back. Deep down, I knew I had to stay sharp. By day 4, I got access to a phone. Ethan's voicemail answered every time. I tried Lauren once, blocked. The woman who'd once vented to me about her rocky marriage had cut me off. I sat rigid in my chair, looking out at a courtyard where people forgot their own names, some mumbling, some shouting at nothing, some staring into space. I thought, is this my end? After all I gave? After all I sacrificed to give Ethan a shot? No, hell no. That night, I asked the night orderly for a pen and notebook, saying I liked to jot down thoughts. He grinned and handed me a cheap spiral pad from the supply room. I didn't write memories or hopes. I logged dates, events, bank transactions, account numbers, Names I recalled, receipts I'd kept, and contacts I still had. My lawyer, Clara Thompson, who hadn't heard from me in years but kept me on her client list, was first on that list. I mapped it out like a blueprint for war. I wasn't foggy, crazy, or gone. They thought I wouldn't notice the locked bank accounts or my name missing from the gas and water bills. They thought I was too old to push back. But I'd raised a man, outlasted a marriage, and fought off prostate cancer. I'd outlast this too, and I wouldn't just scrape by. I'd rise. My goal wasn't just to get my keys back. I'd buy the damn house next door just to see Ethan's face every morning. He'd step out thinking he'd won, but the quietest guy in the room is often biding his time. My time was near. Clara Thompson didn't pick up my first call, but I left a message, short, direct, and clear. Clara, it's Robert Mitchell. I believe my son misused my name and stuck me in a facility against my will. I still have access to joint accounts and legal papers. Call me back. She called by noon the next day. Mr. Mitchell, she said, shocked. Are you okay? I answered. How's a man okay when his only kid cages him and bets he won't break free? She paused, then said, lay it all out. And I did, that Friday. Clara drove 3 hours through a storm to the facility, walked in, and told the orderly she was my attorney. The staff got jittery, real jittery. I could tell by how the director pulled an aide aside, muttering about acting in the client's best interest. Clara didn't flinch. She strode into my room with a briefcase and a glint in her eye. You're out of here in a week, she said. If they push back, we're suing. For the first time in weeks, I breathed like a free man. We went over everything, the papers Ethan faked, the power of attorney I never signed, the deed to the house still solely in my name, and the joint accounts Ethan assumed I'd forgotten. I'd never cut him off, but he didn't know I still had control. I'd been silent too long. Wanted to go full scorched earth? Clara asked. I met her gaze. No, I want to do this right. She smirked. We'll start with revocation. You're sharp as ever. You've got your rights. First, we'll yank every legal hold he thinks he's got within days. Clara filed an emergency petition to void the forged power of attorney. We submitted a mental competency report from the facility's doctor, who quietly told me he saw no trace of cognitive decline. We sued Ethan for elder exploitation and document fraud. We froze the account he used for his pricey mortgage. On Wednesday afternoon, I walked out of the nursing home, no farewells, no hugs, just a duffel of clothes Clara bought me. As I crossed the threshold, freedom hit like a cold beer on a hot day. I didn't want to go back to my house. Clara booked us a quiet motel room for the weekend while we plotted next steps. Ethan didn't know I was out, but he'd learn soon. That weekend, Clara filed a petition to force the sale and split of assets. Since Ethan was squatting in a house he didn't own, and I hadn't okayed his stay, we could legally force a sale. If he wouldn't budge, we'd drag him to court, and the sheriff would toss him out as the sole owner. Every cent was mine. I imagined Ethan and Lauren lounging on my leather couch, drinking bourbon they couldn't afford, boasting about inheriting a house from a doddering old man. They didn't inherit, they stole, and now they were gagging on it. The preliminary hearing took a week. We served the papers at 7 on a Tuesday. Clara's court contact said Lauren shrieked, and Ethan went ghost white before slamming the door. I didn't need to see it, knowing was plenty. That night, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I let it ring. Then it rang again. I picked up. "Dad." Ethan's voice said, "I didn't speak. You're really kicking me out of the house." I took a breath. "You mean the house you kicked me out of?" He went silent. "I never signed those papers." I said, "You faked my name, locked my accounts, and tried to wipe me out. You left me in a nursing home with no warning, no clothes, lied to, manipulated, my rights trampled. So yeah, Ethan, I'm dead serious." He stammered something about Lauren, but I cut in, "I don't give a damn what Lauren thinks. I raised you, and you shoved me in a cage before I was cold." His voice cracked. "You really want to do this? You've got 30 days to clear out," I said, hanging up before he could reply. That night, I slept like a rock. Clara and I toasted with root beer in paper cups, watching reruns of old westerns in the motel. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine, my choice, my victory. The next morning, we met the buyers, a young Hispanic couple, newly engaged, hunting for their first home. They loved the workshop, the wide porch, the heart of the place. "It feels like it's ready for new stories," the fiancé said, tracing the countertop. I nodded. He was right. I took their full offer that day, and we closed in under 2 weeks. Ethan stayed mum, but Lauren didn't. She messaged me on Facebook, "We're your family. How could you do this? This is our future." I stared at it, then typed, "No. You're my past. You buried me too soon." Then I blocked her. I didn't weep or chuckle. I exhaled and waited for moving day, because I had one final play, and I saved the best for last. The last time I walked through my old house, it was bare. Dust lines marked where my recliner and tools once sat, and a faint cedar scent hung from the air freshener. Lauren overused it, always made my sinuses burn. They were gone. Ethan didn't contest the sale order or show up for the final walkthrough. Lauren left a half-empty bottle of hand cream and a fridge note. "You'll regret this. I regret nothing." The sale was clean and legal. The young couple was ecstatic, calling it their forever home. I shook their hands, wished them well, and just like that, the house I'd busted my back to maintain, the house I'd poured everything into, was theirs, with people who'd honor it. "When the sale funds hit my account?" Clara asked. "Ready for the next move?" I grinned. I'd been itching for this. We didn't hurry. Retribution needs patience, precision, calm. We waited for Ethan and Lauren to settle elsewhere, for the neighborhood buzz to fade. Then I did what they never expected. I bought the house next door. A tidy bungalow with a front yard of daisies and a deck facing their kitchen window. It was ideal. I paid cash, no loan needed. Clara sorted the paperwork, and I signed with a hand that shook not from age, but from the thrill of what was coming. I didn't tell my grandson, Caleb Mitchell, yet this was my moment. On my first day in the new place, I wore my favorite flannel cap and sat on the deck with a mug of black coffee, watching the street like any old-timer. Then Ethan stepped out in faded jeans and a tee, holding a garbage bag and his phone. He looked worn, like a guy who knew his ease wasn't his anymore. He saw me and froze. I raised my mug. He spun and ducked back inside. I stayed put. I'd earned this. 4 days later, Lauren wouldn't meet my eyes, yanking the blind shut and parking down the block. My move had cracked her pride. But I wasn't through. I planted daisies along the fence, their white petals bold as daylight. Clara called it small time. I called it steady warfare. Every morning, I nodded to the mail carrier and swapped stories with neighbors who'd once passed me by. I brought cornbread to the couple who bought my old house. Every evening, I watched Ethan through the blinds as he tried to ignore me. Lauren's car started vanishing early, sometimes gone for days. Ethan stayed holed up, lights on at 2 a.m. The TV's glow flickering. I could guess their fights, but I didn't need to guess long. One afternoon, Caleb strolled up the sidewalk, backpack slung low. He paused at the gate, then knocked. I opened the door slow. "Grandpa, can I hang out a bit?" I didn't pry. I swung the screen door wide and let him in. We sat on the deck, and I poured him a glass of lemonade, like when he was a kid spooked by lightning. He was quiet, then said, "I know what they did. I'm sorry. I just looked at him. They said you were forgetting things," he added. "Said you couldn't be alone. But you seem fine to me." I gave a small smile. I've always been fine. He leaned in. "Why'd you buy the house next door? Your dad needed a wake-up call," I said. "Something he sees every day." Caleb sniffed. "You're tougher than I thought." "Grandpa," I chuckled, deep and real. "No, kid, I just stopped acting like I owe everyone my quiet." He stayed for supper, saying he missed my chili. Lauren never got the spices right. I didn't ask about their marriage. Some messes speak for themselves. The next morning, Ethan showed up. I didn't budge. He stood on the deck, cap in hand like a kid caught stealing. "Why'd you do this?" he asked. I sipped my coffee. "Do what? Live here, right across from you." I tilted my head. "I bought this place for the view. You're trying to shame me." I shook my head. "No." "Ethan, you shamed yourself when you called me a burden." He looked away. I went on. "I raised you solo, got you through it all. When I needed you, you locked me in with strangers. Call it care, call it love. No, you erased. You thought I wouldn't push back. You're out of words." I stood slow and headed for the door. "This is my calm. Ethan, don't knock unless you're ready to face it." I shut the door. No tears, no shakes. I leaned back in my chair and watched the daisies sway. The view was perfect. Some folks think a sorry fix is everything. Not me. It's over when you can sit still, not caring what they think, when their shadow doesn't rile you, when your calm buries their guilt. That's the quiet I wake to daily. My daisies shine brighter now. My kitchen smells of fresh paint and bacon grease. I've started whittling against small figures at first. Then one morning, I carved my old house from memory, but with smoky windows, because that's how it feels, a good place haunted by folks who can't face forward. Ethan quit talking to me after that deck talk. He'd grab the mail or drag out the trash, but never looked my way. Fine by me, I wasn't after amends. I wanted truth to be a weight he couldn't dodge. Lauren, though, got loud, petty loud. She threw patio parties, cranking music during supper. She held whiskey tastings on their porch, laughing hard enough to echo, bad-mouthing me to her crowd. Obviously, he's lonesome. Why else move next door? He's fixated on us. It's creepy. He needs to move on. We're fine. He's bitter. I didn't bite folks at peace. Don't yell from the yard. One Sunday morning, I spotted a for sale sign in their yard, slapped in crooked like they couldn't wait. Ethan stood nearby, arms folded, jaw tight. Lauren stormed out in her bathrobe, hollering and pacing. I sat on my deck, watching like it was a matinee not crowing, just seeing the storm I'd weathered hit its makers. That weekend, Caleb came by again. He visited more, saying he liked the calm and missed real meals. I noticed he didn't sleep at his folks anymore. Stuck between lying parents and the grandpa they tried to scrub out, He asked to help with the garden. I tossed him gloves and a trowel. While planting zinnias, he said, I heard them talk about leaving. Mom wants to head back to Arizona. I nodded. Your dad? He doesn't want to go, but can't stand staying. Why's that? Caleb looked up. Because he sees you every time he steps outside. I packed the dirt and smiled. That night, I opened the nursing home notebook, packed with plans, names, and numbers. On the last page, I wrote, they thought they'd buried me. They didn't know I was a seed. Then I shut it for good. 2 weeks later, the for sale sign vanished not from a sale, but because Lauren had bolted. I saw her peel out, SUV stuffed with boxes, face hard, no goodbyes. She didn't glance at Ethan on the porch, she just floored it like she couldn't get away fast enough. Ethan sat outside for hours that night. No music, no drink, just him and the ruins of what he'd broken. I thought about speaking, but didn't. His silence wasn't my burden. That night, Caleb knocked. He's gone, he said. Didn't even say bye. I let him in, patted his shoulder, and let him sit, staring at the wall as old blues played on my radio. I don't get it, he said. They had it all. I looked at him. No, kid. They stole it all and built it on lies. That doesn't hold, he nodded. Can I crash here tonight any time? I said. He stayed the week. We grilled burgers, played checkers, and I showed him old photos of his grandma, telling stories Ethan never passed on. Caleb laughed real, full laughs, and I saw something in him that stung a bit. There was still heart there, still time to walk a better road. Maybe this wasn't just about settling scores, but claiming something bigger, a name, a line, a love that doesn't fade just because someone calls it trouble. That night, Caleb muttered, "You're not a burden, Grandpa." Smiled, eyes wet. I know, kid, I know now. With the deck light warm and blinds drawn, I sat by the window, eyeing the house next door, sometimes dark, sometimes still, sometimes hollow. This was justice, not anger or noise, but the steady hum of peace reclaiming a place pain once ruled. 3 weeks after Lauren left, their house was a husk. No more patio parties, no boozy nights, no porch lights. Blinds stayed shut all day. Ethan's truck sat, gathering dust like it quit trying. All that flash, all that strut, now just quiet. Sometimes I'd catch Ethan through the window, slumped on the couch in that faded tee, eyes blank, like the walls were preaching and he had no reply. Other times, he'd sit on the steps with a beer, puzzling how it all fell apart. He didn't look at me, but he didn't need to. He felt me there, like I felt the ice in his voice when I was caged, wondering why my only son ditched me like a load too heavy to haul. Now, he hauled it solo. Caleb was basically living with me, bouncing between my place and school. Ethan hardly noticed, per Caleb. One night over ribs and cornbread, Caleb said, "He just glares at the TV, doesn't even flip channels." I said nothing. It's tough to feel sorry for someone who stole your worth and buried you alive, but it's also tough to hate the kid you once rocked through fevers. Love's messy like that. Still, Caleb was coming alive, eyes brighter, grin wider. He helped with the garden, asked about family roots, questions Ethan never cared for. That Friday, we hit the church food bank for groceries. A deacon pulled me aside and whispered, "We heard what they did, Mr. Robert. We're real sorry." I smiled. God mends what folks try to break. They nodded, eyes kind with knowing. The whole neighborhood was in on it now. That's the flip side of justice. It spreads not because you holler, but because silence hits harder than any yell. Ethan's silence rang like a bell after a burial that weekend. I dropped a $10,000 check at the community center, no name attached. It was for their new senior outreach, boosting shuttle services for old folks living alone. I knew I wasn't the only one who'd felt like dead weight. I wanted to make sure no one else got left behind so easy. Caleb helped deliver it. "Why not sign it?" he asked. "Because the folks who need it don't care who gave it. They just need to know someone did." He nodded, quiet. That Sunday, Ethan came to my deck while I was roasting potatoes. Maybe the smell pulled him. He stood there ages before knocking. I opened the door, wiped my hands on a rag, and waited. He looked beat, like he hadn't slept in weeks. "I need to talk," he said. I stepped out, but didn't let him in. He stared at the deck boards. "Lauren's not coming back. I tried to fix it, but it's all shot." I said nothing. He looked up, and for the first time in years, I saw the kid I knew buried under those tired eyes. I screwed it all up. "Dad, I thought I was doing right. I was scared. I didn't want to lose everything trying to look after you. You didn't look after me," I said, soft but cutting. "You lost me." He nodded. Shame plain as day. I was wrong. I waited, then spoke. "You thought you could bury me, Ethan, but you didn't know what I had left. You forgot what I gave up to keep this home, to raise you, to keep the heat on and supper ready." He looked down and mumbled, "I never forgot." I nodded. "Caleb's safe with me. He can stay as long as he wants, but you've got to face yourself, and you won't do that out here." I turned and went inside, letting the potato aroma fill the house as I set the table for two. I didn't slam the door or choke up. Caleb came out from the back. "Was that him?" I nodded. What did he say? Nothing my gut hadn't already told me. My job wasn't to carry Ethan anymore. Caleb sat down. "I'm glad you're my grandpa." I smiled. "Me too." "Kid, me too." "Out," said Kid. Ethan sat alone on his porch, and I let him sit. Once you've got peace, you don't trade it away. You don't always get the ending you pictured. Sometimes you get better. I never thought I'd live out my years next to the son who sold me out, or raise my grandson all over again. I never guessed peace would come through walls, not handshakes. But here I am, upright, slept, free. Ethan never left the neighborhood, even after Lauren hightailed it to Arizona. Maybe guilt, maybe shame, or maybe he thought staying close would patch things. I didn't want close, I wanted distance with meaning. His drop-bys were brief, civil, measured. I'd weathered the gale and wasn't letting it blow back. Caleb made my place home, calling it ours. His grades climbed, and he joined the youth gardening crew, asking if we could plant peppers next spring. Damn right we could. We could plant anything, because no one was yanking us up again. One morning, a certified letter came from Clara Thompson with my finalized will, spelled out just as I wanted. Ethan gets zilch, not a dime. The house goes to Caleb when he hits 21, with a trust covering his college and living costs till then. The rest, my savings, sale profits. An old pension went to the Mitchell Legacy Fund, a community center program I kicked off for older men in crisis, ditched by the kids they raised. I started it with a $50,000 gift. I didn't tell Ethan about the will he found out 2 months later when he asked Clara for a copy of the estate plan. She grinned. and said he wasn't listed. He called me that night, voice rough. "Dad, is this real?" "Yeah," I said. "You wrote yourself out years back when you shipped off my life and sold my world before I could blink. You didn't just let me down, you erased me. Now you feel it." He went quiet. "I'm sorry." He said, "I've forgiven you." I said, "But forgiveness ain't a deed." I hung up. That was our last talk. A month later, Ethan slipped away, no moving truck, no wave. A for sale sign popped up 2 weeks later. Neighbors said he skipped town, some said Texas. Others said he lost his job and bunked with buddies. I don't know, and I don't care. The day he left, I sat on my deck with chicory coffee, eyeing the calm street, feeling whole. Caleb joined me with 2 biscuits. "He's gone," he said. I nodded. "Some folks split when they can't steer the tail anymore. Will he come back?" "Maybe," I said. "But he'll hit a wall that wasn't there before." I looked at the garden daisies blazing, peppers poking through, dragonflies darting in the grass. This was mine. At year's end, I spoke at a community center talk on elder justice, covering financial scams, power of attorney fraud, and clawing back your rights. Facing a room of mostly men over 60, I said, "They'll call you old, a dead weight. They'll grin while swiping the life you built. But hear this, truth's got muscle. Silence has heft. The law's got teeth if you're bold enough to bite." They clapped. Some teared up. One guy gripped my hand and said, "Thanks for showing me I ain't nuts." That's the core, not just getting even, but leaving a mark, making sure no one else gets dumped in a room reeking of antiseptic and regret. Their story snuffed out because they can't lift a toolbox anymore. That night, I looked around my modest bungalow. Once a downgrade in my mind, it was unless it was open, light. When Caleb cleared the dishes and asked if we could grill steaks tomorrow, I knew this wasn't a finish line but a fresh start. They sent me to a nursing home and called me a burden, but I gave them a weight they'll never shake.